Hi, this is Becky Gromlich from the Watercolor Classroom and Tuesday's Watercolor Tips. Today I'm going to show you a little bit about how I do frisket, and we're going to paint some berries. Use some bokeh effect. When I have larger areas to fill in, I use a flat brush like this. I'm just doing a little bit, most of it's done already. And this snow is close enough up that there's some jaggedy edges, so I'm having that happen. And then over here there was somehow some holes that got left behind. And since I'm not sure what they'll look like, I'm going to fill them in. Now you do need this to be completely and totally dry. If you don't have it completely and totally dry, then your water will sort of resuscitate what's wet and it'll smear everywhere, and it's not a good idea. I'm using PBO drawing gum for this. Okay, that's all dry now, and we're going to start. Today I'm going to be using a golden talcum quill brush. And the first thing I'm going to do is wet the whole entire paper. Going right over the berries, right over the frisket, over everything. And then you can, hold it at an angle and make sure you've got all your spots wet. Okay. Now I have it evenly wet, but no noticeable giant puddles. My reference photos today are, I got 2 of them. I liked these berries better, but I like the snowy color scheme. So now I've used this for my drawing. I'm going to just put it away and keep this other one out just to give me some ideas. I've drawn some branches in the background, and I'm going to put some color everywhere and then put those branches in. So I'm going with a gray. And you can make gray all different kinds of ways, but I would like it to lean towards blue, if anything. So I'm going to make it with blue and some rust. This is my favorite way to make gray. And I want it to be quite watered down. And also on my palette, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of permanent alizarin crimson. And I'm going to mix it a little bit because I just want this pale color to show that there's berries back there somewhere. And then I think that we'll have a little bit of a tan in there, just. I'm just putting this on random all over. I don't want an even, and I didn't mix my colors until after I had wet the paper. It's good to mix your colors before you put the water on the paper. My paper is starting to dry a little bit because I didn't do it in that order, and so I'm having to kind of rush to get it all wet again so that I don't get a lot of unwanted shapes and lines. I want this to all become soft, and I'm covering these berries too, just to have them going from the same color when I let them cover them. I just want a little bit more color and a bit more blue. A little bit more of my pink mixed with my alizarin mixed with rust. I want these all to be, this background to all get a little bit brighter. Darker. Okay, and now I'm going to go in with a smaller, stiffer brush. This is a Princeton synthetic round brush. I'm going to mix some brown now to put some branches in, and I want these branches to just fade into the background. And I always make brown with quinacridone rust and ultramarine blue. I like it better because it's more transparent than other browns. I want it a little bit watery, but it will spread out, and I'm going to put some branches in here. Just adding a bit more water. Well, I'm going back in with a watery wet brush for those ones that I didn't think spread enough, and spread them some more. And this one it's going to get more branches. This one I want further back, so I'm spreading it out more and adding water. It's a very wet brush. I want this water to stop running, so I'm going to take a sort of a dry brush and stop it from running any further, lifting little bits of it up. And now we dry the paper. This got way pinker than I wanted, so I'm going back in with some blue-gray. I'm not even going to worry about my branches. And I actually like what that did to the branches better. It pushed them further back. I'm going to put some bokeh in here, and this is mostly to give the idea of more snow back there by lightening this. And this is just a wet brush, wet stencil brush, and a round stencil. The stencil does stick to the drawing gum a little bit. I'm gonna have some pretty big ones. As you can see, it does chew your paper up a little bit, too. You want some of these to overlap. And you want some to have been scrubbed harder and be whiter than others as well. A big part of the charm of these bokeh or bokeh is having different sizes and having them overlap. Now here where I have some of this pink, I'm going to actually put a little bit of pink into my brush. Still takes the paper off, but doesn't take the color out. I'm going to do a few that are the same size to give that idea of the berries there. And if you want to add more pink, you can do that later. I would make my brush really clean. Now I'm going to paint the actual berries. This is the fun part. And in this part, I'm kind of looking back and forth between my two pictures. But mostly I want this kind of a look. I just don't want the berries to be quite as dark as this. And they're a different kind of berry. So I'm going to use some alizarin crimson, mostly for shadows. And then I'm going to go with my bright red because it's Christmas berries. And I think that's fun. And then I'll have some blue out here also to add to the shadows. When you're painting with red, the area with the shine is red. Now this isn't going to be pure red, because I have blue behind it. I'm only going to do two berries at a time because I don't want the paper to be drying as I go before I'm ready. I'm going to dry off my brush and get some of this alizarin crimson and go around touching that edge so that it all runs together a little bit, and get these shadows in here. And I'm going to just avoid this little part and paint it later. And if that turns out to not be enough shadow, I can add more. And then under here would have some shadow as well by the snow. Most watercolors dry lighter, but I find that this red and alizarin crimson, I don't feel like they do for some reason. They seem to come out darker than I expect them to. And right there where this berry is behind that berry, I'm going to just add some blue and pop it way back. I can touch that up more when it's dry and not going to run together. Okay, I've dried my paper so that I can work on these berries next to each other without messing them up. I'm cleaning my brush really well because some of those stem things, I really should learn the proper names of my flowers, have some gold in them. Mixing just a tiny bit of rust with it so that it's not as loud. And I'm going to water it down so that it's not as loud. And it won't be as loud just because it is next. It's over top of the... And then I'm going to go back in with alizarin crimson and do the rest of these. Stemmy things. And a little bit of the blue mixed in where I think I need it. I'm going to mix rust and blue, ultramarine. If you mix phthalo blue, it turns a rather green color, which there was a little phthalo on my brush, but. And then I want to warm some of that up, so I'll put some extra rust down here. so that I have a little bit of both. And I want these to be kind of watered down so that it's not a very dark branch coming back here. I especially don't want it to be dark as it goes off the page, so I'm actually going to completely clean my brush. And I will also soften the white there in the same place for the same reason, so it does not take your eye off of the page. Now you can get into a lot of shading on this branch and make the bottom part darker and so that it looks rounder. And I might do that, but for right now I'm going to finish so that you guys can start, so that you all can start painting. Well, no, on that one I just feel like it must have some shading because too much of the bouquet are showing through. And so since that's on my brush, put little bits of it on here. Not much, just a touch. And then there's this sort of a bud kind of thing. And there are a couple ways that people take off frisket. One is this, and it works. I don't really love it though. It picked up some red there, which will be fine. I really like using masking tape, and if you have wider masking tape, it's easier. And then you just pull at it. And since red smears quicker than any other color, even after it's down, I'm going to just pull it almost to the red and then actually get into the red with a whole clean spot. See, some red got on my tape. Okay, now we're down to snow. Even though I really like frisket, I'm often just a bit disappointed that it's not a little bit whiter. The paper, I mean, is not a little bit whiter showing through, and that's one of the things that leads me to ending up using bleed-proof white. But there is a certain charm about not having any white paint on the paper. There's something lovely about just having the snow. Now I'm going to take those same colors of blue and gray that are in the background to do my shading in this snow, and then I'm going to have little bits of pink. Oh, you need it to be really watered down. I thought that was really watered down. And I am actually going to put some snow back here and just, make it like it's a little bit further back. Might use some bleed-proof white on it if I have to. Because the pink would, so I'm purposely touching the red just a tiny bit. The pink would bleed through, the light from the pink would bleed through. Turning my sponge over, and then we'll get into the more blues. And at the top, it'll just be white. Sort of bumpy looking, that snow. And it has tiny bits of purple in it as well. So I am going to use the tiniest bit of bleed-proof white. I take some out and I put it on a clean spot on my palette, but I do want there to be some snow back here. And then I do use bleed-proof white for my snow falling as well. You can also do that with Frisket, but it's not as dependable. And then right here, I wanted there to be a mound in front over this cherry, and I forgot. So I'm going to put it there. Now I'm going to put the splatters on, and for that I take a lot more bleed-proof white. This is Dr. Martin's bleed-proof white. You can get it at lots of places, including the Spokane Art Supply, where I get it. And I'm going to make a big puddle of it. I always practice on another piece of paper, and I put a lot of the bleed-proof white on the brush, and I tap it to make sure that it's the consistency I want. I often will mix a little bit of color with it if I don't want it too white. You do have to watch out for your clothes. I have been known to come away with some pretty serious white on my clothes. Another thing that I often do with this is I just put a tissue over it, spreads them out, makes them bigger and not as dark. So I actually don't mind this brush with that in mind. Using the other side of the tissue this time. And there we have the snow. Let's take off the tape. This is a fun, easy card, and I hope you have a lot of fun painting it and that you even improve on it. If you have enjoyed watching this, subscribe to my channel and hit the like button and send me a comment. Thank you so much for watching.